Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. It's March 30th, and on this day throughout the last 80-plus years, it was a good day to be an Indiana Hoosier. On this day in 1940, 1981, and again in 1987, Indiana University won the men's basketball national championship. Let's go in reverse order and start in 87 with Indiana playing Syracuse in the Louisiana Superdome. And unlike the game we talked about yesterday at the Superdome, this tournament final had the three-point shot and a shot clock. That three-point arc played a prominent role in this game. Bobby Knight had not been a fan of the three-point shot being added to the college game. In fact, even after he retired, he talked about how he still hated it. But with it being part of the game, he at least found guys who could shoot it. And this 87 team had senior Steve Alford, who was taking about 6 threes a game and hitting 53% of them. In this game, Alford hit 6 out of his 10 attempts beyond the arc, and because of that, Syracuse's Jim Boeheim decided to play a box and one on him. Quick explanation for my non-basketball lovers out there. The box and one means the box is a zone defense and the one plays man-on-man on a hot shooter. Alford's final points came with more than 4 minutes left on the clock. So with the defensive focus on Alford, that left Keith Smart available to exploit the defense in the final minutes. And he did. Smart had 12 of Indiana's final 15 points, including the game winner with 5 seconds to play to lift the Hoosiers to their 5th NCAA championship with the 74-73 win over the 'Cuse. To 1981 and the Philadelphia Spectrum we go. First off, this game was nearly postponed due to the assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan earlier in the day. There were discussions, but after it was learned that the president was out of surgery and would survive his injuries, they decided to go ahead with the game. This was sophomore Isaiah Thomas's Indiana team. Coach Bobby Knight gave him the keys to the car at the start of the season and told him to drive it. Destination? Philadelphia. Thomas struggled a bit in the first half of this one, though, scoring only 4. And if it had not been for Randy Whitman, it may have been a Tar Heel blowout. Whitman hit a couple of shots and then gave the Hoosiers their first lead of the game with a second on the first half clock. That set up Thomas to put some high octane in the tank and get going in the second. He had 19 points in the final 20 to finish with a game-high 23 points, and Indiana won their 4th national title, 63-50. One quick note, this was the last year of the third-place game, which was also played on this day. Virginia beat LSU in that one. And now back in the time machine to 1940. Indiana won their first national championship with a 60-42 win over a Phog Allen-coached Kansas team. This was just the second NCAA basketball tournament, and there were a couple of nods to the inventor of the game, James Naismith, in this one. Springfield College from Massachusetts, the school that employed Naismith when he invented the game, was represented in the 8-team field. Also, this was Kansas's first appearance in the tournament, and the Jayhawks were originally coached by James Naismith. And one more NCAA tournament tidbit with an Indiana tie-in. In 1991, the Duke Blue Devils knocked off UNLV 79-77 in the national semifinals, ending UNLV's 45-game winning streak and its bid to become the first undefeated team to win a national title since Indiana's 1976 run. The Rebels were the defending champions, destroying Duke in the national title game the season prior by 30. And the way UNLV played this season, outscoring teams by an average of 27 points a game, nobody seemed to be able to challenge them, especially Duke. And up 5 with 2:20 to play, the Devils knew they were running out of time. And that's when Bobby Hurley stroked the most important 3 of his career. cutting the lead to 2. Brian Davis scored a bucket, Christian Laettner hit a pair of free throws, and Duke had pulled off the win to move into the championship game. Let's go back to 1919, when on this day, the Stanley Cup final was canceled due to an outbreak of the Spanish flu among the teams. The Spanish flu was raging around the world and had made its way to Seattle. Montreal, representing the NHL, and Seattle from the Pacific Coast Hockey Association, were tied in the series 2-2-1. The teams were actually playing these games under different rules. The NHL rules differed a bit from the PCHA, which is why there was a tie allowed in a Stanley Cup final. The PCHA allowed for ties. Game 5 on the 29th was played under NHL rules, which played until a winner was decided. Seattle had a 3-0 lead in that one, but tired, and Montreal rallied to tie the game and then win it in OT. Had Seattle won that game, they would have won the cup. Most of the Canadians came down with the Spanish flu, and they were hospitalized. They had only 4 healthy players on the 30th. Sadly, Canadiens defenseman Joe Hall succumbed to the illness and died on April 3rd. The Canadiens' owner, George Kennedy, was severely affected by the illness that left him weakened for the rest of his short life. He died 2 years later. And now a happier story to end with. In 2001, 15-year-old Michael Phelps set his first world record in the 200-meter butterfly, swimming it in 1 minute 54.92 seconds to eclipse the mark held by American Tom Malchow. The meet was in Austin, Texas, and qualified the teenager for that summer's World Championships. Phelps was the youngest to ever set a world swimming record. He would go on to set 38 more of them, including 7 more in the 200 fly. And here's today's non-sports Did You Know? The inventor of snowboarding, Jake Burton Carpenter, came close to calling it snurfing, a portmanteau of snow surfing. That's all for today. I'll serve up another heaping helping of this dish tomorrow. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.